Understand how to respect your superiors, how to follow a chain of command, how to properly handle just the system itself, not your job.
Okay.
Right?
Who pays for it?
At that point,
see, that's the problem.
yeah,
You can't ask Podunk, Texas, to pay for the kind of training it would take to do what you're talking about.
Fair.
That's the problem. So let me offer you a better solution. Privatizing the police force. Okay? You hire a private company to handle basic services. I personally think it should go all the way up.
Well, what's the basic qualifications for that?
So that's up to the private company. That's the cool part about it. Okay, so you use private security, right? People use private security. Okay, so this is the reason why I think it would work so well. Is because the biggest issues we have right now, biggest complaints you have in policing, right? Mm-hmm. Excessive use of force, doesn't matter if it's black or white, excessive use of force happens all the time, right? And then the other biggest accusation is always racist cops, which statistically, if you look at the statistics, minorities do get pulled over more than Caucasians. One of our own senators, a Republican senator in Washington, D.C., gets pulled over by the D.C. police all the fucking time, okay? For whatever reason, however you want to look into that, society reasons, whatever, okay? Here's the advantage to privatizing the police force. There is, Los Angeles, and I'm fudging the numbers a little bit here. Los Angeles Police Department has got like $1 billion police budget. It's like $500,000, right? $500 million, okay? That's how much money the city pays to run that police department. What CEO in their right mind is going to protect a bad cop and risk a $500 million a year contract? Okay? You are going to see a drastic improvement.
It's more of as a guardian, pretty much.
Exactly, and that's what they're supposed to be.
That should be what should be instilled in their mind, is as a guardian. Even when they're given their badges, the shape of their badge is supposed to be a shield.
Exactly.
A shield meaning to protect.
I agree.
So so they should never actually use their guns or anything to use anything to harm someone. But it should be only used in the form of protection.
Yeah.
A gun in a cop's hand should be pretty much idolized as a shield instead of an actual item to take someone's life. Yep.
And the other advantage is, because you talked about earlier, more training and stuff like that. Once again, that's the advantage to privatizing it. As then you tell the city goes, look, we have X amount of people in this city. We need a police force to do X. We want you to enforce this, 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 and this. Okay? And those are your rules, and there you go. You go out. If a cop screws up, if a cop's a bad cop, the problem you have right now is you have public unions, which are some of the worst people in the world about protecting bad employees. Public unions are the worst about it. Working in aviation, I worked right next to government employees. They're horrible. Not all of them, but the unions are horrible about protecting the bad ones, and they keep them on there. That doesn't happen in a private company. Even with a union, that doesn't happen, because there are certain rules that are laid out, and those rules are, that's it. And you get to a certain point, you screw up enough, and you're gone, and the union can't protect you. Government contracts are negotiated to make it to where it is almost, government union contracts are negotiated to make it to where it is almost impossible to fire a government employee. And that's intentional. Those unions have been there so long, negotiating those contracts over and over and over for so many years, that that's the point that they've gotten to. And the government just takes it because that's what they do. Now, if you privatize the police force and gave them a union, that's not going to happen, because you still have that CEO that has to represent to the people. It has to be able to justify all of that cost and has to justify all of that money. With a government union, that doesn't happen. And then the private union, one of the other advantages to it is you're going to reduce costs. That always happens. That's the reason why the government is always trying to privatize as many contracts as they can throughout time. It happens in aviation all the time. They always want to try to privatize a contract if they can, because it's so much cheaper to do it that way.
I agree and disagree. Because the people who are going to pick up these contracts are most likely going to be pre-existing security forces.
Okay.
Right? So, security contractors.
Cops, former military, pretty much the same kind of people that make up most police forces.
Yeah, I've worked private security. It's terrible. And by terrible, I mean it's not good.
Job sucks.
No, the job's easy. The people who get hired for it. So you have, like you said. So you have ex-military.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking. We're not talking ex-military. Like, you get your occasional Marine and whatever who saw combat and so on, which has its own set of problems. But normally you get a guy like retired yeoman.
Yeah.
For instance, so a desk jockey.
Okay.
Who never got to do anything.
Okay.
But they have military on their thing for their application, so they get hired.
Okay. But you're talking about an internal private company issue right now.
No, I'm talking about every single one I've ever seen in this area.
Okay, but
I've seen quite a few.
So I already have a caveat built into this as to how to prevent those kind of issues, because I'm sure what you're probably going to get into.
Because I asked, what's the criteria? Who makes the criteria? And you said
the private company.
I think there needs to be more.
There's a catch to that. Okay, there's a catch to the private company thing. Okay, when I say that a private company is going to come in and take over the police force,
are you talking private contracting, like real private contracting, or are you talking like private security, like you would hire?
No. I'm talking like the city hires a company, a private security firm, to take over the police force in said city.
Yes, a private security firm. You're talking about like
any of them.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but what you would have is, okay, so what you do is you put it on a 5-year stint, okay? So the contract has a 5-year and a 10-year clause, okay? The 5-year clause of that is at the end of 5 years, the city council reviews the contract, it reviews the complaints, it reviews all of that kind of stuff, and then decides whether or not to keep the contract based on their opinion of how the company is performing, right? Then you go a step farther, there's a 10-year clause, okay? Every 10 years, the city as a whole goes before a popular vote as to decide whether or not to keep that private contracting company as their police force. If they decide not to, then that private contracting company goes away and a new one has to come in and take over and fix those problems. It's the exact same way it works in aviation. And the cool part about it is some people are like, oh my God, we're all going to lose our jobs. We're going to lose all these cops every time a new company comes in. That's not what happens. That's not the way it works in the contracting world, and that's not the way it's going to work here. The way it works in aviation is when a new company comes in, all that changes is the cops don't change. Your local cop, he's not going to change. All that's going to happen is the name on his company logo is going to change. Okay, you're still going to be dealing with the same cop, but now you have a new company that comes in. They might have some new training methods, right? Or they might have better accounting methods. They might figure out a way to cut corners and save the city some money, or they're going to come in with new technology, or they're going to be able to do stuff. That's the advantage to changing the contracting house over and over. But once again, those little caveats, having that 5-year marker in there and having that 10-year marker in there, prevents from having like what you're talking about. It's where the company just comes in and hires all these shitbags, all these morons that just need a job, and to do stuff like that, because these aren't going to be, you're not going to be hiring people to go sit at the gate down by the dock and check IDs all the day. You're going to be doing background checks on guys that are going to go out and they're going to be interacting with the public on a daily basis. Okay. So you're going to do psychology, as a good CEO, you're going to do psychological examinations. You're going to do very, very thorough background checks. You're going to do all this other kind of stuff. But the advantage of doing it, which the current police already do, the advantage to making it privatizing it is there's more accountability in a private market than there is in a public sector.
And they'll have more budget to work with for better training and so on. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and there's not going to be as much waste either. And then if you're really worried about completely handing it over to them, make it to where the chief of police is always an elected official or a city appointed official or however you do it. And then also you have a government accountability office, internal affairs. You have an internal affairs that all companies are going to have. It's called their HR department. And then you have an internal affairs that's strictly ran by the city and is accountable to the city and to the mayor and to the people. And so you have that internal affairs. So if there's a dispute that happens and the public's going, hey, this is BS, and then you now have the city investigates at the same time that the company investigates, and if you don't like the findings and you think that both people are being shady, well, every 2 years we reelect our city council and every 2 years we reelect our mayor. So you get rid of them in the same process too. So if you think that the decision they made based on that 5-year contract, if you think they're doing a crappy job, well, you're going to get rid of the mayor and the city council because that's who those police forces are directly answering to.
Okay. Not a good side.
Right? So like I said, I've thoroughly thought about this.
I think there just has to be caveats. That's the only
Absolutely, and that's why the 5-year and the 10-year thing are so important to have in there. Every 5 years, the city council renews the contract because you can't do it every year.
Then at that point, I believe, I think the only issues left in general, and I think it's the bigger problem with the entirety of the U.S. right now, is just election periods for the officials above the ones we're talking currently. Because
right.
I really think that's the bigger issue at hand.
Right.
It's causing a lot of lower issues.
It is, to a certain degree, but the thing about it is if we fix our local issues here, well, if we fix what's happening here, because that's the thing, we can't fix what's in Washington, D.C., right? You and I and Carlos and Christina and everyone, we can't do anything about that, right? We can't fix Washington, D.C., but what we can fix is our local city, right? We can fix here. And if we can set a good example here and do things right here, then that's going to set a good shining example for other places to try it. If we can do it right here and show that it can be done here and it can be done well here, then it can be an example for everybody else. But even if it doesn't become an example for everybody else, even if we only do it right here and right for us here in this city or in this county, then who fucking cares about everybody else?
Well, it also has that ripple effect where, okay, everyone's happy here.
Right.
We have a safer community. We're more united.
Yes.
We have more common beliefs at that point because, let's be honest, a lot of issues and beliefs and so on, it stems from a smaller problem that itches in somebody's side until they start catching on and so on. So, I mean, at that point, we'd be more unified. It would be easier to address the larger problems.
Absolutely.
And the larger issues that we really need to start facing head on.
Yeah. And they're community problems. You know, the policing, I'm sure could use a little work in Corpus. I know, at least, and this is anecdotal evidence. I don't know of any I haven't looked up the actual statistics, but it does seem to me, looking from the outside, just from a general perspective, that the South Side seems to be getting worse. It seems to be there's more shootings. Yeah, it seems like the South Side is deteriorating. And when I first moved down here 10 years ago, it was a really nice place to be. You know, you either wanted to be on the South Side, or you wanted to be in Cal Allen, or you wanted to be in the good parts of the Bluff. Those are the places you wanted to be. Well, now my brother lives over on the South Side, and I mean, he's got people running around. We think they're picking, there's shady stuff going on in the house next door. He was hearing that there was a shooting. There's been a couple of shootings in the last 6-8 months that haven't been too far from his house. There's things that are getting bad, and that kind of stuff needs to be addressed. Everybody in this town keeps concentrating on roads. And yeah, the roads are shit, okay? We also live in this place which is basically built on sand, okay? We have salt water in the air 24/7. The roads are going to be a constant problem. They're going to be a constant fight. That's just something we have to understand living here, okay? But there are real things we can do about it. We've got to be able to get these city councilmen to pay attention to where this money going. I mean, there's no reason all this bond money. Why is bond money sitting in bank accounts? Okay, we've passed the bond that you wanted us to pass, that you asked us to pass, so you could spend the money to fix these things. Okay, where's the bond money go? What happened to it? Why is it all just sitting there? Why aren't these things being taken care of? And if that's the case, if they're not going to take care of these things, then we need to quit voting for these damn bonds, because they're obviously not doing anything with the money.